Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Happy Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday the 14th, 2025. And I just want you guys to know that vision from the Lord. Today is a vision from the Lord. Couldn't really sleep last night. Went to bed probably about midnight, a little after midnight, I think. And it's about 5 a.m. This morning, almost 5 a.m. It's 4:53 to be exact. And really, like I said, I couldn't sleep. So I got a vision from the Lord this morning. Big vision from the Lord. And I need to let you guys know what's going on. A lot of stuff is going on, a lot of news I watched yesterday, a lot of things I did, worked on the cars and things of that nature, but none of that stuff matters. None of this stuff matters at all. Vision of the Lord was, first of all, we talk about the wildfires. The wildfires. Somebody posted an article. I read this before I left, before I went to sleep, and it said, "Money is temporary, houses are temporary, cars are temporary, careers are temporary. Only God is eternal." Amen. So I read this little article off of Facebook last night, and I think I reposted it. It's a picture of the fire, of the wildfires, and all that kind of stuff. And bring this in a little bit. It's pretty deep. But I watched a bunch of the wildfire stuff last night too. Some guy he had raw footage of behind the scenes of all the first responders and all that kind of stuff. It was a pretty good video, actually. He got like 600 some thousand views, and he was showing all the behind the scenes in the city during the daytime and the nighttime, and it was pretty interesting, but it was pretty sad. But like this article said, it says money is temporary, houses are temporary, cars are temporary, careers are temporary. It says only God is eternal. So, dwelling on that and thinking about that, not just yesterday, but all throughout the week, this type of thing. I had been thinking about that and been praying about it. Reflection. Today is a big reflection. So it was a reflection in my life. I also watched Ali Sadi. I think he's a comedian. I watched him last night, and I think that's how you pronounce his name, Ali Sadi. He's a comedian. He was in prison for, I believe, 6 years, and he was a drug. I think he was a drug dealer. He was in prison for like 3 years. Pretty interesting character, and now he's a stand-up comedian. And I've seen him a long time ago. I've seen him probably about 8 years ago or something like that. And then it just all of a sudden just started popping up because I started watching like other comedians and stuff. And he did a prison, it was a prison stand-up thing that he did, and a prison stand-up event. I think he went back to the original prison that he was in, and he did it for all the convicts and stuff. And very, very interesting. It was very good. But looking at what some of the things he said, one of the things that he said that really stood up in my mind is he was talking about prison is in you're in prison, or he was in prison, and he said while he was in prison he was free in a certain way. And what he meant by that was he was talking about you don't have to do the same things that you used to do. You can be free. You can be free from this, free from drugs, free from alcohol, whatever. Prison was actually, they say, is it's not good, but it's not bad for some people. Some people actually need that. And it just kind of made me reflect back on my life. I've never been to prison or anything like that, but it's just one of those things where you look back at your life, you look at the mistakes, and you look at the things that you've done. And I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, and I just look back on the things that I've done, and I start to really, really realize the things I did back in the day when I was in my 20s. Everything wasn't right. I got in trouble a couple times for different things. I ain't gonna lie, and I don't want to go all into it. But the thing about it is, I went back and I started thinking about, could I change any of those things? If I went back in time, would I have changed any of those things? Could I change any of those things that I have done? And then I started to look at another thing. I said, we can't change anything. I'm 61 years old. I know I can't go back in time. There's no time machines. That doesn't exist, that type of thing. And I can't change anything that I've ever done or said to someone or anything like that. No one can do that. What we do have to do is we have to adapt. We have to adapt to this particular world that we're in, and we have to continue to live. But we need to live for Christ. And what I'm realizing is that, maybe at a late age, like I said, I'm 61 years old. People might call me an OG, old geezer, whatever you want to call me. But the fact of the matter is that when I started praying last night, like I said, I couldn't go to sleep. I kept tossing and turning. And then when I woke up, everything hit me. I got basically a vision of my life, of all the things that I've done, all the things I went through. And I started saying, goes back to the fires. When you leave this earth, you can't take anything with you, right? Right. And if you leave this earth today, I'm 61 years old. If something happens to me, if anything happens to me, everything I've done or achieved, it doesn't matter, right? Yeah. People will remember me. They'll go, okay, Tony, there's Tony the broadcaster. Tony from Cali, he was a broadcaster. He did this, he did that. He worked on cars. He did this. He did all kinds of different things, but it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. And where am I going to go when I leave this earth? So that's what this video is about. Because when I go back to, let me see, I'm just going to go back a little bit. I'm going to go back to 1988. Okay. 1988, I used to work for Hewlett Packard. And when I worked for Hewlett Packard, I did some crazy stuff at Hewlett Packard. I ain't gonna go all into it. People that know me, they know me. So I did some stuff at Hewlett Packard way back in the day. And it was ironic about it. This very day, I still use Hewlett Packard. I got a Hewlett Packard computer right here. Okay. So I'm not mad at Hewlett Packard. Back then, I was kind of mad at Hewlett Packard. I was an inventor. I wanted to invent things, and when you're an inventor and you work for a company like Hewlett Packard, Packard Bell, I was a little angry inside because I was like, I can't really design anything or build anything because Hewlett Packard's going to take my design because I work for them. You have to sign some type of document saying that anything that you build has to be looked at from that company. Anything that you create, build. So I didn't like working for Hewlett Packard, Packard Bell, Apple, and all those companies because I knew that they had a grip on me. And I was an inventor. I was always coming up with innovative ideas. Some of the ideas that I've come up with to this very day are being used. But I don't want to go into that because it can frustrate me and make me a little angry. I try not to think like that anymore. But anyway, so I worked for Hewlett Packard. I wasn't the best employee that worked for Hewlett Packard, and I did some bad things when I did that when I worked for Hewlett Packard. But the thing about it is, I go back. I said, can I change any of those things? Would I have changed any of those things? And let me just tell you this: I purchased a Hewlett Packard computer. It was a 286 computer. You guys don't know what that is nowadays. Nobody knows what that is. It was a desktop computer, a flat desktop, not a tall tower. It was a flat desktop computer, and you put the monitor on top of this box. And it was a 286. A 286 computer back then was very popular. Couldn't do a whole lot of stuff with it, and I think it came with like 4 megs of RAM. Okay, megabytes of RAM, not gigabytes. Gigabytes did not really exist. And then it kind of did exist, and it was kind of a weird thing. It wasn't gigabytes. it was gigabyte. They did have a 1 gigabyte drive, and the gigabyte drive was about this thick. They had a 1 gigabyte drive, and that would fit in a mainframe or a tower. I think it fit in a mainframe. It was about this thick. Okay, this thing was huge. You may be able to put it in a tower, but I think it was for mainframes. Anyway, and that 1 gigabyte drive at that time cost $1,000. So 1 gigabyte drive, it cost $1,000. I wish I could find one of those right now just to show you. But anyway, I wanted one of those really bad at the time. I said, man, I want one of those. I want one of those. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford $1,000. I was only making at the time $6.35. I was mad about that. My salary, I wanted more. You know, I wasn't a technician at that time. I was only an assembler, someone who built the computers on an assembly line. But anyway, the 1,000. I remember the $1,000 that it cost for a drive that was about this thick, as thick as 2 books, 2 or 3 books. That's how thick that thing was. Okay, 1 gig, and now you can get 1 gig in something like this or smaller, right? An SD card. An SD card. This is not even 1 gig. This is just an adapter. But you can put anything in here. You can put nobody would use a 1 gig anymore anyway. Now somebody would use maybe a 256 gig. Could pop in here, micro SD. I'm shooting on a micro SD card right now, which is smaller than this. I don't have one right now in front of me, but you know what a micro SD card is. It fits into your phone. This is just a regular SD card, and these go up to whatever, 256 gigs, 256 gigs in here. And I'm talking about a 1 gig drive that was this thick. That cost $1,000. My point, before I make this point, 1 meg in your computer. People had 1 meg to 4 megs of RAM. If you had 8 megs, you was balling. You was balling big time if you had 8 megs of RAM. Nobody has 1 meg, nobody has 8 megs anymore. Matter of fact, people have gigs in their computers now. I think it's what, 16 gigs, 32 gigs, 64 gigs of RAM. It's a chip that goes in your computer. Gives you more processing power. Okay, not the actual processor, but it gives you more processing power. And then we can go into the chips too. We can go into the processor chip, how that's changed over the years. But we're not going to go all into technical stuff. I just want to give you guys paint a picture. 1 megabyte of RAM to 4 megabytes of RAM. 4 megabytes of RAM was normal for your computer. Computer couldn't do a whole lot. This internet thing we talk about right now, internet didn't really exist. I don't believe it existed back in 1988. If it did, I wasn't really aware of it. But if it did, it possibly existed, but it wasn't called internet. It was called World Wide Web, and people were using modems and things of that. They used these big old modems. We don't want to talk about all that. It's just another whole history. But in 1988, I got connected into the computer world. Actually, even before that, but that's when I really got serious a little bit. So I bought and purchased a 286 from Hewlett Packard. It cost me $2,000. I made payments on it. I was mad. I was upset. I bought it without a hard drive. He said, what can you do without a hard drive? Well, you use floppies. We used floppies back then. I bought it without a hard drive because with a hard drive it would have cost more money. And I got a good deal on another hard drive somewhere else. I was able to put in and format and do all that kind of stuff. That's when I got into building computers later on. So I was like, I'll get my hard drive somewhere else because their hard drives are going to cost me too much. And at that time, it wasn't gigabyte hard drives that I bought that you could buy. It was megabytes. So I think I bought a 200 megabyte hard drive somewhere and was able to put a 200 megabyte hard drive in there, and I was balling. That was kind of balling back then. 200 megabytes. Okay, so I painted this story. I had a 286 computer, with like a 200 megabyte hard drive that I purchased somewhere else. And my point is, I was so happy. I was so happy in one way, because I got this computer. I worked for the company. I was kind of representing the company, but I was kind of mad at the company at the same time because I couldn't really invent anything. But my point is, the technology back then, I wanted it so bad. I just gravitated towards that technology.